Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I and the staff have had a long interview, and I have submitted a written statement. I don't have a further verbal statement to make now, but if you don't mind, there are 3 or 4 items in the statement that I've just heard from the staff that I think it might be worthwhile for me to comment on. The paragraph that said before September 11, 2001, the aviation system had been enjoying a period of relative peace. That isn't quite so. We'd had a very serious threat against aviation in the Pacific. We had numerous indications of and actual hard intelligence to which we reacted and imposed additional measures at stations overseas with regard to several vectors of attack. And of course, even though TW-800 turned out not to be a bomb, it was there was a considerable period where that was a major concern. So to the extent that that paragraph might indicate that we had been lulled into any sense of complacency, that is certainly not the case for FAA and FAA security. Then the paragraph at the end said that, at the end of the first page, talks about our efforts to complete a 5-year process to bring in a rule for, it was actually the rule to certify screening companies. And it does give the impression that that rulemaking was the only thing that we were doing. And that's far from the case. Rulemaking was important, but it's far from the only thing that we were doing. With regard to rings and layers, I think it's a mistake to look upon the set of rings that begin at the airport as being the only rings that apply to protecting the aircraft and all who fly on them, and indeed to protecting people in the airport. It is important that there be interaction between those rings and the further outer rings or layers of our national security system. And one of the items of that from a strategic sense is to make the defense of any of our installations, in the case of civil aviation, to make the aircraft and the people to have defenses there that will require the attackers to do extraordinary things that would then come to the attention of the intelligence and law enforcement authorities in the outer layers. Then there's a further statement that we were reactive. Well, we haven't had a bomb in cargo, and we haven't had an attack by surface-to-air missiles. And we had measures with regard to cargo and a program with regard to cargo, and we're working, and indeed, in the case of a specific threat overseas, work with the airlines and the nations concerned and with the National Security Council staff in order to put in and develop a range of things that we would do in certain circumstances. I hasten to say that a lot of those circumstances would have required cancellation of the flights. But it isn't that we had to wait for something to happen, and indeed there are more difficult things to deal with, to which we were paying attention. For example, the introduction of nerve agent gas onto an aircraft. With regard to CAPS, I hope that there will be questions about it, because its role, I think, I would like to say some things about its function.